This castle and its surroundings soon reveal the mysterious secret of a long-lost train full of Nazi treasure.
Even decades after World War II ended, some of Nazi Germany's darkest secrets are still being discovered.
Finally, the race is on tonight to solve a mystery dating back to World War II and collect the riches that may come along with it. Legend has it that a Nazi train filled with gold was lost 7 decades ago.
From experimental weapons to hidden underground labs,
Japanese naval engineers developed this revolutionary suicide weapon, known as the Chiton, from an existing torpedo.
what's been unearthed shows just how far the regime was willing to go in its quest for power. These aren't just forgotten scraps of history. They're chilling reminders of a nightmare that nearly consumed the world. Join us as we dig up the things they never wanted anyone to find.
Hitler. Who was the man behind the monster?
Number 18. Wolf's Lair Underground Maze. Beneath the thick, silent canopy of Poland's Masurian woods lies a crumbling stronghold, once the strategic heart of a brutal regime, now a chilling monument to obsession and fear. This was the Wolf's Lair, Wolfschanze in German, a massive wartime headquarters made up of more than 200 buildings.
The foundations go really deep. There are chambers and rooms underneath,
Including bunkers, barracks, and shelters, spread across roughly 6.5 square kilometers.
This is his actual bunker. It's just so monumentally huge, gigantic.
Built between 1940 and 1941, it became Adolf Hitler's main base on the Eastern Front during the war. The entire site was a fortress.
Adolf Hitler's first military headquarters on the Eastern Front, where he directed events from a huge complex of camouflaged bunkers.
Protected by 3 layers of security zones, swarming with landmines, and ringed with anti-aircraft guns. The bunkers, hidden under camouflage netting and trees, were no ordinary shelters. These were reinforced with steel and concrete, with walls nearly 2 meters thick. Even with all the secrecy, one of the war's most infamous events happened here. Colonel Klaus von Stauffenberg's failed attempt to assassinate Hitler with a briefcase bomb on July 20th, 1944. By early 1945, with Soviet troops approaching fast, the Germans tried to destroy everything using tons of explosives. Still, much of the lair withstood the blast. On January 27th, the Red Army took what remained. Then came a new twist. In 2024, deep beneath Hermann Göring's villa on the site, archaeologists uncovered 5 human skeletons, 3 adults, 1 teenager, and 1 baby. All were missing their hands and feet, buried without clothes or belongings. Fossils linked to ancient rituals were found nearby, raising eerie questions about what really happened in those tunnels.
Hitler's other vengeance weapon, the V2 rocket, is already under development, so there are thousands of engineers and scientists already working here under the strictest secrecy.
Number 17. The Reese Complex. A narrow rail line cuts into the forest, stops at a bricked-up wall, and disappears into silence. No signs, no records, just an old tunnel sealed tight, and no one really knows what's on the other side. That's Project Reese.
A black ops site so top secret that today its true purpose is a mystery.
Launched in 1943 deep in the Owl Mountains of what's now southwestern Poland, it was one of Nazi Germany's most secretive and bizarre construction efforts. The name means giant, and it lived up to that.
Exploring one of the largest structures ever built by the SS and known as Project Giant.
7 massive underground complexes were planned: Osowka, Włodarz, Rzeczka, and 4 more, meant to be linked by a network of hidden tunnels, roads, and railways. To build it, they forced at least 13,000 prisoners, mostly from concentration camps like Gross Rosen and Auschwitz, to dig and blast through solid rock. Many didn't survive. The work was brutal, non-stop, and surrounded by total secrecy. Organization Todt oversaw it all, pushing construction even as Germany was falling apart. And yet, no one knows for sure what it was for. Some believe it was a last-ditch command center for Hitler and top SS officials. Others think it was built to house secret weapons factories or to protect critical infrastructure from Allied bombings.
weapons factories, and a headquarters for Hitler, Himmler, and the SS.
But by the time the project was abandoned in early 1945, only around 9 kilometers of tunnels had been finished. Less than 1/5 was ever reinforced with concrete. Today, a few parts are open to the public, but many sections are still off-limits, sealed, flooded, or completely unexplored. Whatever the Nazis were trying to hide in Reese, they never got to finish, and they never explained why. Number 16. The VWeapon Site at Peenemünde. On a windswept stretch of Germany's Baltic coast, the Peenemünde Army Research Center was once the heart of something terrifying. Not a battlefield, a test site for rockets designed to kill without warning.
With the Nazis having consolidated their grip on power, Germany embarked on a course of military rearmament.
Here, under Werner von Braun's leadership, Nazi engineers developed the V1 flying bomb and the V2 rocket, what Hitler called vengeance weapons. The V1 was a slow, pulse-jet drone that buzzed like a chainsaw overhead. You could hear it coming. The V2? You couldn't. It flew faster than sound. It hit before you even knew it was launched. Over 18,000 people died from V-weapon strikes. Most were civilians. But Peenemunde's role didn't end there. In August 1943, the Royal Air Force launched Operation Hydra. 596 bombers flattened key parts of the site. They killed top engineer Walter Thiel, but also over 600 forced laborers. Children were among the dead. Production moved underground to Mittelwerk. There, prisoners from Dora Mittelbau camp were forced to build the same rockets that had killed their families. Over 20,000 of them died doing it. After the war, von Braun and his team were taken to the U.S. under Operation Paperclip. The same man who built Hitler's missiles helped put Apollo on the moon. Today, concrete shells remain at Peenemünde. Number 15. Karl Clowberg's sterilization experiments. Block 10 in Auschwitz wasn't a clinic. It was a torture chamber dressed in white. Inside, Karl Clowberg, once a respected gynecologist, carried out some of the most vile experiments of the entire war. His patients? Jewish and Romani women. His mission? To find the fastest, cheapest way to sterilize them, on behalf of the Nazi state. He didn't use anesthesia. He didn't ask for consent. He injected chemical agents directly into women's uteruses, causing unbearable pain, massive infections, and, often, death. Around 700 women were used in these procedures. Not volunteers, victims. The truth came out after the war, during the Nuremberg doctors' trial. Testimonies from survivors and paperwork from Auschwitz confirmed everything. Clowberg was captured by the Soviets, sentenced to 25 years, and released after just 10. He went back to Germany, tried to resume his career, and was rearrested when people found out who he really was. He died in custody in 1957 before he could stand trial. Block 10 is still there, quiet now, but you can feel what happened inside. The horror, the betrayal of medicine. What Clowberg did wasn't experimentation. It was assault, backed by state power. His victims weren't just numbers. They were daughters, mothers, human beings, and they deserved better. Number 14. The Berlin Flack Towers. Thick concrete walls, radar-guided guns, and a hospital buried inside a fortress. Berlin built a monster to fight the skies, and it nearly became a city within a city. When British bombers struck Berlin in August of 1940, Hitler demanded a defense system the Allies couldn't break.
Hermann Goering, the chief of the German Air Force, actually promised Hitler that if the Reich was to ever to be bombed...
The result? The Flack Towers. Colossal concrete strongholds that doubled as anti-aircraft batteries and bomb shelters. The first one, known as the Zoo Tower, went up near the Berlin Zoo and was completed in just 6 months. Its walls were thicker than 11 feet, thicker than most Cold War bunkers, and it was designed to survive direct hits. Each Flack Tower complex had 2 structures, a G Tower, packed with guns, and an L Tower, used for radar and fire control. The main cannons were no joke, 128mm Flak 40 guns that could fire shells more than 14 kilometers into the air. That's high enough to reach a modern passenger jet. But these towers weren't just weapons platforms, The zoo tower alone sheltered up to 10,000 civilians during air raids. It even had a working hospital with 85 beds, all tucked inside layers of concrete. By April of 1945, as Soviet troops closed in, the towers turned into last resort fortresses. Artillery fire pounded them, but they held out until the very end. The zoo tower didn't surrender until April 30th. After the war, it took multiple demolition attempts to finally bring the structure down. Parts of others still stand, massive, forgotten beasts hiding in plain sight. Number 13. Action T4 Euthanasia Program. The Holocaust didn't start with death camps.
Many people died in the ghettos because of the poor conditions, and this is of course intentional by the Germans.
It started with a letter, a desperate father asking Hitler to end the life of his severely disabled son. That single request became state policy. In 1939, Nazi Germany launched what they called Action T4. It was framed as mercy, but it was murder, calculated, clinical, and carried out by men in white coats, children with epilepsy, adults with schizophrenia, infants born with Down syndrome. They were targeted, not for what they had done, but simply for who they were. They were taken from homes and hospitals, loaded onto buses with windows painted gray. 6 killing centers were used, Hadamar, Hartheim, Grafeneck among them. Victims were told they'd receive treatment. Instead, they were led into rooms that looked like showers. Then came the carbon monoxide. Families got urns of ashes, death certificates that blamed pneumonia or heart failure. But things didn't add up. Too many deaths, too quickly, with eerily similar wording. After the war, the truth surfaced piece by piece. Locals testified about the buses. U.S. troops found stacks of forged records and cremation logs. Former staff spoke under interrogation. The Hadamar trial in 1945 exposed everything. More than 15,000 murdered in just one site. And across all of Germany, over 200,000 lives erased. Action T4 was more than a tragedy. It was the prototype. The same doctors and methods would later be used in the Holocaust. Today, the buildings still stand. Number 12. Arnsburg Forest Massacre. In the dying days of World War II, with Nazi Germany collapsing, a series of unspeakable crimes took place deep in the Arnsburg Forest, North Rhine-Westphalia. Over just 4 days, between March 20th and 23rd, 1945, SS units under Hans Kammler executed 208 forced laborers. Their supposed crime was being labeled plunderers. Among the victims were Polish and Russian civilians, women, men, and even 2 children. In Langenbach Valley near Warstein, 71 prisoners were stripped, lined up, and gunned down. In Suttrop, 57 were made to dig their own graves before being shot. And near Eversberg, 80 people were executed over a pit blasted into the earth with grenades. No one spoke of it, until American forces arrived in April. Locals stepped forward, guiding soldiers to the shallow graves. The U.S. military unearthed the bodies, then ordered former Nazi Party members and townspeople to see the aftermath for themselves. The victims were later reburied with dignity in Meshede's Fulmecca Cemetery. And decades later, in 2019, archaeologists returned to the sites. They uncovered over 400 personal artifacts, buttons, shoes, even a Polish dictionary, silent reminders of the lives that were erased. Number 11. U-864 and the toxic cargo. Off the coast of Norway, there's a wreck that still leaks poison into the sea, and it's not from a recent accident. It's from a Nazi mission that never made it home. In February of 1945, German submarine U-864 slipped out of Bergen under strict orders. Its destination was Japan. Its mission? Deliver steel aircraft parts and 67 tons of mercury, enough to supply Axis allies with the resources needed for advanced weapons production. It was called Operation Caesar, and it was supposed to be top secret, but British intelligence was listening. The Royal Navy sent HMS Venturer, a submarine with one job: stop U-864. What followed was something that had never happened before, an underwater battle between 2 submerged submarines. After a tense 4-hour game of cat and mouse, Venturer fired 4 torpedoes. 1 hit. U-864 went down with all 73 crew and its entire cargo. It stayed lost until 2003, when researchers found it in pieces off Fedje Island.
The wreck of the U-boat was found in 2003 by the Norwegian Navy, about 2 miles from the island of Fedja.
But the real horror came later. 1,857 flasks of mercury had ruptured, leaking toxic metal into the seabed. In 2018, Norway approved plans to entomb the wreck beneath layers of rock and sand. Number 10. Human skin lampshades at Bukinvald. When U.S. troops arrived at Bukinvald in April 1945, they knew they were entering a place of horror, but even they weren't prepared for what they found. Inside the camp's pathology department, among medical records and preserved organs, were lampshades, not ordinary ones. They claimed that these were made from human skin. These lampshades became a symbol of how far the Nazi regime went in stripping people of their humanity. At the center of this nightmare stood Ilse Koch, the wife of Camp Commandant Karl Otto Koch. Survivors called her the Witch of Bukinvald. Witnesses accused her of selecting prisoners with unique tattoos because she wanted their skin. After they were murdered, their flesh was allegedly tanned and turned into grotesque keepsakes. Koch was tried and convicted for war crimes, but the court never definitively proved the skin lampshade allegations. For decades, that part of her legend remained in limbo. Then, in 1992, a widely circulated lampshade was tested, and results said it was synthetic. But in 2023, new forensic methods were applied. One item, once doubted, was confirmed to be made from human skin. That lampshade is now preserved at the Bukinvald Memorial. Number 9. Enigma Machine found in the Baltic Sea. In November 2020, off the coast of Germany in Gelting Bay, a group of divers working for the Worldwide Fund for Nature were just trying to clean the sea. They were pulling up old fishing nets, abandoned, tangled messes choking the Baltic. But then, something strange surfaced. At first glance, it looked like a rusted typewriter. Then, they saw the rotors. What they had found wasn't scrap. It was an Enigma machine. This was the code-making device the Nazis believed was unbreakable.
I don't know if you're familiar with the Enigma Machine, Enigma code machine, which was used by the German Nazis.
Used to send their most secure wartime messages. And for a time, it nearly was. Until Alan Turing and his team cracked it in Bletchley Park, changing the course of the war. Experts believe this particular machine was tossed overboard by a retreating German crew, desperate to keep it out of Allied hands. It sank to the seabed, tangled in a net, and lay there for over 75 years. The machine was sent to an archaeology museum in Schleswig, where it took nearly a year to restore. Salt had to be drawn out, the metal stabilized. Now, it sits on display, silent, but not forgotten. Number 8. Nazi relics found in Argentina. In June 2017, police raided a quiet home in Becar, a leafy suburb just outside Buenos Aires, and uncovered something chilling. Hidden behind a false wall, behind a bookshelf, was a secret room. Inside it, 75 Nazi artifacts. Among them, a bust of Adolf Hitler, medical instruments once used for so-called racial science, and children's toys covered in swastikas. Investigators believe these items may have belonged to high-ranking Nazis who escaped to Argentina after the war.
Police in Buenos Aires, Argentina have uncovered a treasure trove of Nazi artifacts.
That suspicion has weight. Adolf Eichmann, one of the Holocaust's architects, was captured in Buenos Aires in 1960. Josef Mengele, the infamous doctor from Auschwitz, also disappeared into South America. These weren't just relics. They were leftovers from men who outran justice. Then came another bombshell. In May 2025, Argentina's Supreme Court revealed it had found 83 boxes in its basement. Customs had intercepted them back in 1941, but they were never opened. When they finally were, officials discovered Nazi propaganda, photographs, and thousands of handwritten notebooks tied to the Nazi Party. These discoveries force Argentina to reckon with an uncomfortable truth. The country became a post-war refuge for some of history's worst criminals. Number 7. Hidden art. They didn't fire a single shot, but a handful of salt miners in the Austrian Alps may have saved the soul of European art. Inside the Alto Se salt mine, the Nazis hid a staggering number of looted treasures. Over 6,500 paintings, 137 sculptures, and countless crates of stolen artifacts. We're talking about works by Michelangelo, Vermeer, and Jan van Eyck. Hitler planned to showcase them in a massive museum in Linz, a personal dream project he called the Führer Museum. But as the war turned against them, Nazi officials panicked. In April of 1945, August Eigruber, the Gauleiter of Upper Danube, ordered everything inside to be blown to pieces. 8 massive bombs, 500 kilograms each, were brought in to level the mine. That's when the locals stepped in. The miners, ordinary men who had worked those tunnels for years, quietly defused the bombs. No orders, no weapons, just the conviction that this art had to survive. They sealed off the mine and waited. On May 8th, the Americans arrived. The monuments men began their recovery work almost immediately, finding the art nearly untouched. The salt mine's cool, dry conditions had preserved everything perfectly. To this day, the mine stands as proof that even in the middle of war, some people chose to protect beauty instead of destroy it. Number 6. The Nazi Bell. Tucked deep within the Nazi regime's most secretive research efforts, one project stands out, not for what we know, but because of how much we don't. They called it Die Glock, the bell. According to post-war accounts, this bell-shaped device was unlike anything the world had seen. Roughly 2.7 meters wide and nearly 4 meters tall, it supposedly housed 2 counter-rotating drums filled with a glowing violet mercury-like substance known only as Zerum 525. Some said it could bend gravity. Others whispered it might have warped time itself. The story first came to light through Polish journalist Igor Witkowski, who claimed he'd seen classified transcripts from an SS officer's interrogation, Jakob Sporenberg. According to those files, Die Glocke was tested in a facility near the Wenceslas mine in Lower Silesia. But here's where the line between fact and legend blurs. No confirmed evidence of the device has ever surfaced. Some believe it was smuggled to South America. Others think Allied forces seized it in secret. And in Poland, a strange concrete structure known as the Henge is often linked to the project, though its true purpose remains a mystery. Number 5. Higerlock Reactor Cave. Tucked beneath a church clinging to a cliff in southern Germany, there's a cave that once held the blueprint for a nightmare. In the final months of the war, as Allied forces closed in, German scientists were working in secret in the small town of Higerlock. Deep inside a stone cellar, hidden beneath the town's castle church, they built what they called the B8 reactor, an experimental setup meant to unlock nuclear energy. It held 664 uranium cubes, each weighing about 2.4 kilograms, all suspended in heavy water inside a magnesium container, surrounded by a graphite reflector. It wasn't just ambitious, it was dangerously close to history-changing. In February of 1945, they moved 1.5 tons of uranium, 1.5 tons of heavy water, and 10 tons of graphite from Stadtilm to Higerlock. The uranium came from the Sudetenland, and the heavy water had been produced in Norway, at the Norsk hydro plant that Allied commandos had famously tried to sabotage. But here's what they didn't figure out. The reactor wasn't big enough. It couldn't reach critical mass. The math wasn't on their side. On April 23, 1945, the U.S. ALSO's mission discovered the facility. The reactor was still there, but the uranium had been buried in a nearby field, and the heavy water was hidden in the basement of an old mill. Today, that cave is a museum, but what it nearly became is the real story. Number 4. Murkers salt mine treasure. Beneath the quiet village of Murkers in central Germany, something waited in silence. Buried so deep underground, most locals didn't even know it was there. But in April of 1945, that secret came crashing into daylight. As General Patton's Third Army rolled through the area, 2 local women casually mentioned to a few American soldiers that something unusual was hidden inside the nearby Kaiserroda salt mine. So, U.S. forces went in to check. What they found, 2,100 feet below the surface, was staggering. Inside one of the vast chambers were over 8,000 gold bars, 55 crates of bullion, more than 3,300 bags of gold coins. Alongside them, 63 bags of silver, a bag of platinum bars, and 8 bags filled with gold rings and dental fillings, some yanked straight from Holocaust victims. The walls were lined with money, 3,682 bags of German marks, 80 more bags of foreign currencies from all across Europe. But it wasn't just money. Priceless art had been hidden here too, like Edouard Manet's In the Conservatory, looted from a European museum. The monument's men soon arrived to secure and document everything. Even Eisenhower showed up, along with Generals Patton and Bradley. This wasn't just treasure, it was undeniable proof of theft, atrocity, and greed on a scale the world had never seen. Today, the Murkers mine is a museum, but the horror it once held, that's still sinking in. Number 3. The Amber Room's fate. A room made entirely of amber and gold vanished in a war zone, and 80 years later, no one knows where it went, not even close. The Amber Room began as a royal gift,
including the Amber Room from St. Petersburg. The room was reconstructed in 2003.
It was built in the Kingdom of Prussia in 1701 and sent to Tsar Peter the Great in 1716. When it was finally installed in the Catherine Palace near St. Petersburg, it dazzled everyone who saw it. Over 6 tons of amber panels, gilded carvings, and mirrors. A Baroque masterpiece so breathtaking, it earned the nickname the 8th Wonder of the World. Then came the Nazis. In 1941, German troops invaded the Soviet Union. Within days, they reached the palace, dismantled the Amber Room in under 36 hours, and shipped it to Königsberg Castle in East Prussia. For a while, it was put on display. Then, in 1945, as the Allies closed in, it vanished. Some say it was destroyed in a bombing. Others claim it was hidden in underground bunkers or loaded onto a ship that sank in the Baltic Sea. But in 1997, a Florentine mosaic panel from the room turned up in Germany. That small piece reignited the mystery and suggested the room might not have been destroyed after all. To this day, no one has found the original. The Russian government rebuilt a replica in 2003, but the real Amber Room, still missing, still silent, still one of the greatest unsolved thefts in history. Number 2. Secret Arctic Base, Shatzgraber. In the icy isolation of Alexandra Land, far above the Arctic Circle, a Nazi outpost lay forgotten for more than 70 years, buried beneath snow, silence, and secrecy. Its code name was Shatzgraber, meaning treasure hunter, and it was built in 1943 on direct orders from Hitler. Officially, it was a weather station, but even now, its true purpose remains murky. Rumors of secret missions, hidden cargo, and coded transmissions swirled for decades. Most dismissed it as a myth until 2016. That year, Russian scientists from the Russian Arctic National Park made a startling discovery. Scattered across the site were more than 500 well-preserved relics, bullets, swastika-marked documents, weather equipment, and fragments of daily life frozen in time. But the story grows stranger. In 1944, the base's crew fell desperately ill after eating undercooked polar bear meat. They had contracted trichinosis. With no cure and no help nearby, a U-boat was dispatched to evacuate them. The station was left to rot in the cold. What remains today isn't just steel and paper. It's a testament to how far the Nazi regime was willing to go, pushing into the most hostile parts of the planet to chase dominance. Number 1. Hidden Nazi treasure trains. As the Third Reich fell apart in 1945, a strange rumor began to make the rounds. Somewhere near Wałbrzych, Poland, an armored Nazi train loaded with gold, stolen art, and priceless valuables had vanished.
For days, fortune hunters have descended on this railroad track in Wałbrzych, western Poland.
Sealed in a tunnel to keep it from the Soviets. For decades, the story lived on in books, bars, and local legend, but no one could prove it was real. Then, in 2015, that changed. 2 men, Piotr Koper and Andreas Richter, claimed they had found it. Using ground-penetrating radar, they spotted what looked like a 100-meter-long object buried near the Wrocław-Wałbrzych railway line. Poland's deputy culture minister at the time, Piotr Żuchowski, publicly declared he was 99% certain the train existed based on the scans. What followed was chaos. The media descended on the region. Locals dreamed of gold. Excavation teams got to work. And then, nothing. No tunnel, no train. Just geological anomalies that looked like man-made structures but weren't. Still, the Nazi gold train hasn't faded from memory. It's no longer just about treasure. It's about the shadows left behind by a regime that tried to erase its crimes, and the people still willing to go digging through history to find the truth. Thanks for watching. See you in our next video.